Welcome to the Porsche Club Insider, your one stop for all things Porsche and PCA. Here's your host, Vu Nguyen, and the Insider crew.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 196. And man, this one, I'm just going to tell you in advance, is probably going to be an extended version.
I hope so.
We've got, you've seen the title, so you know where we're at. But I feel like I'm a young kid in a candy store. I don't know where to focus. My eyes are just constantly moving around, and I'm extremely excited. But before we introduce our guests, I just want to welcome and thank you to everyone that makes this possible, especially Pirelli. Pirelli tires have to achieve the highest levels of performance, safety, and noiselessness and grip on the road surface. Innovative tires that can satisfy even the most specific mobility needs of the end consumer. Thank you all for listening. If you aren't currently a PCA member and you own a Porsche, what are you waiting for? Grab that VIN and make yourself a PCA member. For those of you that don't currently own a Porsche, check out our test drive program. We'd love to unlock some resources to help you find that special Porsche for your driveway or your garage. And of course, in this episode, we are going to meet and talk with, automotive royalty. He's chuckling, but it really is, and where we are in California. This is somewhat of a bucket list visit for us.
I think if you're into cars, you've heard his name.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bruce, for welcoming us to your garage. You've been a member since 2015, but you've been around, obviously, cars much longer than that. Most people will say that, the title that probably follows you around the most currently is that you're the co-founder of the Peterson Museum. But hopefully we're going to dig much deeper on this podcast and let our members know what you've really done in the past. And so here we are. You're the ultimate car guy. We can't wait to find out about how you got into cars, what attracted you to Porsches, and how did you acquire these wonderful pieces, not only the Porsches, but some of these other cars. Manny, how are we going to stay focused? We only have an hour-ish.
I was going to say, we tried to focus on Porsche because we got to see here about the other cars before we started recording, at least some of them.
I almost feel guilty that we're not going to be able to cover some.
Well, it's a pleasure having and sharing it with true enthusiasts, which you both are. And it's an honor for me. I never think of myself as anything less than a car jamoke, just somebody that it's in your DNA. You can't put it in and you can't take it out.
Yeah.
And I have some very dear friends that have extraordinary collections and have wonderful sons, but they have no interest whatsoever. So my family, we didn't have the money, and the idea of wasting your time on a car, their family couldn't afford a car, so what bigger waste of time could there be than a car?
It was extravagant, right?
Oh, yeah. And my dad, he'd buy a few-year-old car and drive it till the wheels fell off, and it works for me. I've got an old car I'm nursing along, but I just never dreamed that I'd have two cars, no less cars of my dreams, So this is very special for me.
And I mentioned how long you've been officially a PCA member, but I think your what you've done for PCA in the short time as an official PCA member, you've done a lot for us, because when there's been displays at the Peterson, in fact, you had a very prominent display made for the Porsche Club of America. You had our 60th anniversary vehicle on the Porsche display there. Like, that meant a lot to us to be asked to send over our own memorabilia to be showcased. So thank you for that.
Oh, no, the PCA is amazing. When I bought my first Porsche back in 1961, I bought it, or it was delivered. The POC was the club, Porsche Owners Club.
Yep, especially out here.
Especially out here. Yeah. And they did driving events and gymkhanas and that kind of thing. And I can share with you a picture of me with my 61 Porsche with the Bursch exhaust and the Stinger out back, thinking I was, Dan Gurney or something, far from it. But the PCA just does an amazing job. And your magazine, I just treasure. When that comes, I just sit down, turn everything off, and just, enjoy it. And I love the human interest stories.
And thank you for all of your support with Panorama. I'm going to say thank you on behalf of Rob Sass, our editor, and the access you've given us to cars, locations. A little factoid is you're one of the very few people that were on the cover of Porsche Panorama.
They don't show many faces.
They don't show many faces, and you are actually on the
Our
cover.
editor had his face on it a few months ago.
I haven't had my face.
haven't.
You haven't had your
No
face on
way.
it, but he's had his face on it. So
That was pretty darn special.
But
for me.
thank you for, again, all of your support. So let's
you.
just start with a few quick questions, and then I've got some housekeeping, and then we'll go into digging a little bit deeper. So you talked about your first Porsche in 1961, but I know more of you from the hot rod side. So, and I believe, like, from the family side you talked about earlier, the car scene was not necessarily passed down to you.
Oh, not necessarily is an understatement. When I was growing up in the 40s, Robert E. Peterson started Hot Rod magazine, and that was the first magazine that I ever subscribed to. And so I loved hot rodding. I was born in Hollywood, the epicenter of hot rodding.
Absolutely.
And so I used to just dream about hot rods, and I would draw pictures. You know, at the front of a 32 Ford is a pretty easy thing to draw. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't do it very well even then or today, but you know, that's something I drew in my notebooks, always just dreaming about, you know, a hot rod. And that was never meant to be, because that was just, I could have been a Hell's Angel as far as they were. My parents were a hot rod. Oh my
hot
God.
rod.
And so I subscribed to Boy's Life, which was a scouting magazine, and Hot Rod magazine. And you know, if Hot Rod, my parents got to it first, it would just magically disappear. You know, just he'll get over it.
Oh, really?
And it was funny because when I went off to college, my room had models and a lot of automobile memorabilia. And when I came back from my first semester, it was like a guest room. They'd cleaned they'd thrown it all away, you know.
No, they didn't.
So yeah, they fixed it. You know, they got it out of me, you know, but it just lit the fire. But so I didn't have that kind of parental love.
Yeah.
I had a lot of parental love.
It wasn't automotive love.
Oh no,
Yeah,
they taught me. I would never be who I am today without my parents.
Right.
But yeah, the automotive side just wasn't part of it. So it's in my DNA. I've always loved hot rods, and hot rods are just so important to, you know, technology advancement. Everything in here is a race car, pretty much. And I think racing and hot rods are where technology and advancement comes from. That's where they learn about a lot: aerodynamics, performance. And hot rods in my generation, that was, you know, where we learned our trade, whatever.
Right.
And whether it was a Model A or a Model T or a 32 or 34, you know, that's where it all started. And every community had a hot rod club. Now, my parents just would have nothing of me joining a hot rod club, and I was okay with that because I was working. But every community had a hot rod club, and one of the local clubs in Santa Monica, which is adjacent, was called the Low Flyers. And I for 30 years I had lunch with Phil Hill and JB. There were like 5 of us that got together and had lunch every Friday at the Nethercutt Collection, which is classic cars. But Phil Hill told me about the Low Flyers, which was a local club. And one of the members was Phil Remington. I don't know if that rings a bell, but Phil Remington is like...
If you watch the Cobra documentary with Adam Carolla, you see it.
Exactly. Phil Remington was maybe the most talented fabricator, engineer. He got it. Stu Hilborn Injection. Travers and Coons, they built all the, Jim Travers and Coons, Traco, they built all the engines for Roger Penske. Jack Engel, this is all in the Low Flyers. If you look up Low Flyers, it is amazing. So that is the kind of geniuses you had. They came out of World War II with all this, between war and motorsports, technology just blooms. It's just, the pressure's on. So they had their combat pay, probably a picture of their girlfriend and a picture of the car they'd love to have in their wallets.
Right, exactly. And
so they came back and they started hot rodding. And the Low Flyers, they had lots of clubs around here. And so I I've always been a fan and very respectful of the hot rodders. Behind me is the SoCal belly tank,
Yes.
which was Alex Exidius. We celebrated his birthday here in this garage for many, many years with Ed Iskandarian and Vic Edelbrock and Alex Exidius and Don Prudhomme. We'd all get together every March 22nd and we'd celebrate his birthday. That was the first speed shop in Southern California, the SoCal Speed Shop. That car is it's a belly tank from a P-38 fighter plane. And you know, Alex got out of the service and thought, you know, that's aero, you know, right? It was, so that's what they used to create the first, you know, Bonneville kind of car. So it just went on from there. So I've always been a fan of those guys. And thankfully for me, we've restored a lot of great and historic cars. Every single one of them, the owners and builders have been alive and helped with it. Because we love putting these guys in the limelight. Alex Exidius, the Pearson brothers, Don Prudhomme, Doane Spencer,
who's who,
Bob McGee, all those guys were who's who in hot rod in the 40s and 50s. So we've included them in all of our efforts, and it's been very gratifying, you know, because the Pearson brothers who built that Pearson Brothers coupe, that was the world's fastest coupe. And it was a car, that was the first kind of car we restored. And it had a wonderful history where it was, I don't want to go too deep into Bonneville, because we're really not here about Bonneville, but the idea at Bonneville, these guys aren't high dollar for the most part, high budget guys. So if something works and it goes down the Salt Flat Straight or the Dry Lake Straight, they just keep adding power. That's the way you make it go faster. Right. You know, and that car went from 1950 till 1992. It was running. It never ran all the time, and it ended up going well over 200 miles an hour with a big block blown Chevy in it. So when I discovered which car it was, and it looked just like that, it was called the Tom Thumb Special. It was still painted. It was yellow, kind of weird, kind of tribal, you know, art on the side. It didn't work for me, but when the fellow that Tom Bryant, who I bought it from, you know, he couldn't believe anybody'd want this clapped out thing, and he said,
"Editor of Road and Track, Tom Bryant."
No, no, a different Tom Bryant, but yeah, Tom Bryant. There's another great name. So anyways,
so you're in the hot rod scene, and now I believe your day job was real estate, correct?
No, my day job, I had a candle shop here in this building.
The candle.
Yeah,
the candle store. I do remember that.
We can go into the career part, but
that's another hour.
That's another, you know, maybe for the next time.
Yeah.
But I don't know where I was going with this, but
what I would have probably losing my train of thought when you're bringing up engineering, and to me, the hot rodding is so important because it advances the need or the journey to get that speed, right? They were sharing ideas, be it aerodynamics or engine or whatnot, to go faster and faster. And so back in, I think it was 2006, the Porsche Parade was in Portland, Oregon. And Porsche sent a couple engineers to be guest speakers for our tech events during the parade. And one of the events they did was a night at the drag. So we went to the local drag way, and you know, it's a run what you brung on a Friday night type thing. So a lot of the Porsches came, and the drag way accommodated us and gave us our own like a session and whatnot, blah blah blah. But what I thought was interesting, we were walking around with the engineers, the German engineers from Porsche. And they were so fascinated by the American hot rods. And they were walking up to the owners, you know, these German accents, and asking them, why did you do this? Why did you do that? What does this do? And, you know, they were, the American hot rodders were very free with their information. You know, we did it because of this, and we did this. And I thought, I wish I could have recorded it, because you had to hear the Germans, you know. And I'm thinking, do they realize who these guys are? These are guys from Weissach that are asking, that are really curious why they changed this on their engine. And they're American cars, not the Porsches.
Yeah.
And I thought, much to your point, that's what hot rodding does, right? It
100%.
It improves the breed, if you will.
And it's kind of universal admiration.
Exactly.
And like Charles March, the Duke that puts on the Goodwood, he has a hot rod.
Yeah.
And early on, but when he first started, he asked me to bring a hot rod over. We brought hot rods over, but they are all over France. They're all over Europe. They're all over Sweden and Scandinavia. And I think there's a real appreciation and admiration for what some of these guys created.
That's why we're here, actually, in Southern California this weekend because of Unstock, which is PCA's celebration of Porsche hot rods.
Yes.
That we're not always the Concours Field all original as they left the factory, but what other people have done to their cars to make them faster, to improve what Porsche did.
And many a times it's also just an extension of style, your personal style into your car.
Don't get me started because I think Unstock. I always said Unstock, but
Unstock, yeah.
Unstock.
Sounds cooler.
Made up word.
My wife. I have to give my wife credit in case she's listening, but my wife came up with that. It's like, sounds a little German if you had an umlaut to it. It means nothing.
I think it's fantastic because early on, you would never deviate from anything that came out of the factory.
That's right.
And for me, like one of the leading design people were Singer. And I remember when they came out and they were reimagining the car and doing stuff with woven leathers and colors. And I thought, that is so cool.
That's the essence of hot rodding.
Yeah. And so I can do that and I can relate to that. So I think it is so great. And Porsche encourages it. And the fact that it's at the Porsche dealerships that PCA is doing Unstock is fantastic.
They will go through the concours in the parking lot at events when they come and take pictures of modifications, stickers. They love to take pictures of stickers. I asked them one time, I said, why are you taking pictures of stickers? He goes, because I want to go back and show my guys what the Americans do to their cars so we can get ideas and we can do the same thing when we build our cars. And I thought, it's really really
that's very open-minded of them. Yep. And it's not unreminiscent of Harley Davidson. I grew up racing motorcycles.
You weren't supposed to, I hear.
Oh, no.
Another hour story.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other life on motorcycles. But I remember when, the guys were building choppers and cafe bikes and I'm, Harley just didn't get it until like maybe the late 70s. They came out with a cafe racer. They finally figured out this is what they want. We might as well start doing it ourselves. Yeah. And in a way, Porsche's done that with their, with
Special Wishes, Sonderwunsch.
Oh, please,
that's the factory hot rod shop.
Yeah.
Tell us what you want and we'll build it. Any color combination, any motor combination. That's hot rodding.
The wooden dash.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not a big fan of that. There's just something that seems like wrong about a wooden dash. But I have a friend of mine that has a wooden dash in his 911. That's Wunderwishes or whatever you call it.
That's funny you say that because I have friends that always talk about especially in their Mercedes, and they have the wood dash. I'm like, why is there wood? Woods are for like wagons. Why do you have wood in your car? Well, it's the great. I'm like, just give me that carbon or give me the stainless steel or give me. Okay, no hate mail, please. If you have wooden dashes, I didn't mean to.
It's just fine.
It's fine for you. I just.
What's
I
great
gotta get myself out of this hole.
What's great is that Unstock, everything's fine.
Everything is fine.
If
it makes you happy, that makes me happy.
It killed me when I had to tell people with stock GT3 RSs that there's a Porsche parking area that you can come park to watch, but you can't enter the car in the show because it's not modified enough.
Yeah.
I realized you had this beautiful RS straight from the factory, but this is about modified cars.
Right, you got the wooden gear shift knob out of a 917. That does not qualify you.
Exactly. All right, let me thank our one of our corporate sponsors here, Auto Atlanta. If you're chasing down parts for your Porsche, maybe you're storing a 944 Turbo, or maybe you need a part for one of these cars back here, you can give them a call. Either way, Auto Atlanta has you covered. They've been taking care of Porsche since 1978. Every Porsche part you need, they can ship it internationally. They have expert tech advice. You can give them a call. They can help you with detailing. They can help you with full mechanical restorations or just regular servicing. They also buy and sell pre-owned Porsches. Anything that you might need, you want to put in your garage or put a new lease on life on the one that you have, give them a call. Head to autoatlanta.com. There's a 5% coupon code, PCA, the number 5, OFF, and get 5% off your first order at autoatlanta.com. Porsche parts, Porsche people, Porsche passion since 1978. So, first question for you, sir, is when was the first time you saw a Porsche?
That's a good question because it's almost a fluke how I ended up being a Porsche guy. because I always loved hot rods. And then after hot rods, and I spent time in the drag strip and did all that whole thing. And then I decided what I wanted to do was get a high horsepower Chevrolet with a 4-speed, the cheap post body, and so my dad, who just, forbid anything automotive or anything around, he told me that if you save your money, I will pay for half your first car.
Oh.
So that was a pretty cool.
That's a nice
that was
incentive.
An incentive,
Yeah.
And so I did work. What he didn't know is that I had cars and motorcycles
Already,
but it was a nice thing for him to do. And so I remember he thought I was ready when I was about 19 years old. Or 20, somewhere around there. And so I knew exactly what I wanted. I wanted a Chevy Biscayne, the cheap post with a big engine, 409 and a 4-speed.
base car with a big motor.
Yeah, and it was $2,400. And so my dad said, okay, I'm in. I'll do half of that. And then just before I ordered it, I lived in Hollywood, and there was a fellow, John von Neumann, who was the Porsche distributor, Competition Motors.
Yes.
And by the way, I'd
That's
seen
a
these.
name we kind of recognize.
I'd seen these. Though that's his Testarossa over there. That's
Oh,
John
wow.
von Neumann's. I can go on about that car too, because and I knew John von Neumann. So I remember Porsche always had kind of a sporting, profile, and I'm a sporting kind of guy. At least I thought I was.
Yeah.
And so I just, drifted into his showroom, Competition Motors, and sat with him, and he explained to me, and I liked it because it could help my image, which wasn't great, but I thought, this was a really cool thing. It was competition car. It was not like all the other Chevys and Fords that were around, and I always kind of liked taking a different route. So I was able, and he explained to me that if I picked up a car at the factory, I could save money, because I was just thinking, how would I get this down to $2,400? Well, I got it to $2,700. I went back to my dad, and I explained to him that I'm going to do a compact car. Whoa,
Oh.
he loved that.
Finally, we've gotten through to him. We've gotten through to him.
That's right, compact, 60 horsepower,
fuel efficient.
Yeah, it was like no extras except signal red. I love the signal red.
That was quite a
Signal red
hustle.
and chrome.
I got to say, that's quite a hustle.
It was good, and he went for it because he couldn't tell you from a Porsche or a Peugeot or a Pontiac. This sounded good. It was a small car, economical. 60 horsepower, not kind of a step up from a Volkswagen, and so he went for it. And I also convinced him that what I needed was to get some culture, and I needed to go abroad. Take a month out of school. So off I
ultimate
went.
hustle.
I
This
was
is
going to say the
ultimate
ultimate
hustle.
salesman.
Oh yeah, no, I was good. I gotta say,
yeah.
and he was amazing. So I bought the Porsche in 1960.
And did a Euro delivery.
I slept with that brochure. I mean, I remember it's somewhere. It was part of the stuff probably my parents
So
threw out.
what year would this have been?
60. It was a 61
Okay.
Porsche. And the 60s and 61s are pretty similar, just a few little defining differences. But I remember I had that brochure. I could look. It was like every night I'd look at it. Oh my God.
Do you not have that brochure?
Do you know?
We need to get you that brochure.
I have. At the lit meet, I found one.
You did find it. Okay, I was about to say, we're going to put an APB out for a
It was
a 60
signal
brochure.
red. It was, oh God. So anyways, I counted the days till I went and picked it up in Europe. And that was in 61.
Wow.
And anyways, I brought it back. I was nobody that none of my friends knew what a Porsche was. None of them. And most people around here, you'd flash your lights, maybe every few days or something. There weren't a lot of Porsches around.
Can you share what was it like to take Euro delivery in 1961?
It was maybe the most exciting day of my life. I mean, it was like an advent calendar, just checking off the days till I get to the Porsche factory. And it was very personal. They had a building and they had European deliveries and had the European license plate on.
Works one probably.
I don't
The main
know.
building,
I
right?
probably should know. But so I remember getting it, and then I drove it around Europe, and it was just parked at a special place at night, and then I took it to Bremerhaven and shipped it home, and it was just one of the
And
most.
how old were you at this point?
So in 61, I was 20 years old.
I was going to say, you said 19, the deal with your dad, so 20,
Yeah.
doing a European
Yeah.
delivery.
Isn't that amazing?
That's
So
incredible.
since you were out here in L.A., did Jimmy Dean's death, or his involvement in Porsche, have any influence?
I think
with
it
you?
did. I think the cool guys, the McQueens and the James Deans, or whoever the cool guys were at the time. There were enough Porsches out here that it was impressive.
Okay.
And I think James Dean, Blackboard Jungle, Giant, all those things. I never wrote down why I did it, but when I back into it, I think it was probably just a cool thing to do at the moment.
Yeah.
And I liked the image of the car, and it was different.
And you were upscaling your own image.
Yeah, and Dean Jeffries, who's a hot rodder, had a Carrera. I mean, there was just enough influence that I thought, this high horsepower Chevy can wait. I'm going to do this Porsche thing. And I remember one of my best friends went to Annapolis, and he came back, and they had some kind of special deal when you graduated with Pontiac. And he had a Pontiac with a 421 that had little flags on the side, and it was a convertible and automatic, sadly. But he couldn't understand why anybody would want something so slow as this, But anyway, so I drove it and I enjoyed it. And
so when did it click for you? Because you're going from cars with a bunch of horsepower, much bigger, and you go to this compact car that your parents think you made a very sensible choice. But there's an emotion that we were talking about earlier with these smaller mechanical cars, maybe not the highest of horsepower, but there's something special there. Like, when did it click for you?
Well, I think it clicked when I bought the car.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think I wouldn't have bought it unless something told me that this is what I should have. Also, believe in God. God said, Bruce, you buy one of these.
Was there a car that you test drove when you saw Mr. Von
Oh,
Neumann?
no.
You just had to believe that it was going to be okay.
Oh, no, all the cool people had it. Oh, yeah,
really?
There was no
test drive to see what.
No, I probably wouldn't have bought it if I had a test drive.
Really?
But it's not a car that is any like a big performance car. But it went so. As you can tell from around here, I just like everything on the ground. Mm-hmm. So there was a fellow named Al Kadrobi that had a shop over here in Clover City. Well, as soon as I got it back, I mean, I could get into it like a little bit of a dive. I can send you a picture of the car.
Yeah.
I put fake knockoffs on it, but these knockoffs were so realistic looking.
Yeah.
There were chrome wheels and it was a backing plate with a knockoff. I mean,
you couldn't help yourself.
I couldn't. And then I took it to Al Kadrobi. I lowered it.
Yeah.
I put on a Bursch exhaust because Roger Bursch had just started Scientific Automotive out.
You got a stinger hanging out the back.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I just wanted it to look like a race car.
Yeah.
So, and it was, Porsche's always been about momentum. And I remember I lived close enough to Sunset Boulevard where I could,
open it up
open it up, 50 miles an hour. But, I had my, midnight runs on Sunset Boulevard.
What
really,
a cool time.
It was the best. I mean, I was born exactly at the right time in world history and automotive history.
I'm quite jealous. Like,
I wish I weren't so old now.
I think we live through cool times
to,
now, but man, some of the stuff that you're sharing,
pretty special.
Well, back then, the dumb stuff you did wasn't documented on
social
media. Right. Not everyone had a camera to say, look at this guy, this 356.
Yeah. All you have to do is look around and say, did anyone see that?
I would have been that guy.
Yeah.
And then, so I had it all the way through school. And then when I graduated college, I took a bartending job up at Lake Tahoe. Mm. And there's a famous boat restorer there called Sierra Tahoe Boat Company. Anybody that's into boats will know them. And the owner was a fellow named Dick Smith and Moreland Weissel. And Moreland Weissel had a Gullwing with a Chevy engine in it.
Oh.
It was like perfect. It was a foreign car, but it had all the, so I sold my Porsche.
Yeah.
I sold it at Lake Tahoe. And I bought this Gullwing with a Chevy engine in it. And that was Cobra, quicker than a Cobra. I went to the drags, of course, first thing.
In a Gullwing.
In a Gullwing, and I got 113.
Wow.
I mean, that's quick.
Yeah. Well, give us some perspective to, especially younger people listening. What did a Gullwing go for back then?
I can tell you to the penny.
Yeah.
I paid $4,000. That was my net worth. I mean, I literally shook my piggy bank. I sold my car. I took all my years, my summer's earnings at Lake Tahoe, and it all totaled $4,000. And I drove home like the proudest cat. And with a Chevy engine in it, it was so well done. It had Rudge wheels, factory Rudge wheels. Yeah. I'll share a picture with you. That was 1960.
Quarter mile at, we would say 100 and what?
113.
113. So
a Cobra might do 100.
So that's like a 12-second quarter back in the day.
It was in the 13s.
13s, yeah. So that's
but it was
quick.
so fast.
Yeah, super quick
was
back
it
in
carbureted or?
It was had 2 AFBs, and it was honestly I drove it for a year. Now I couldn't have been more proud that it had a Chevy engine in it. But when I'd open up the hood, people would go, "Oh no!" and it hurt my. I'm a sensitive guy. So I sold it to my roommate. If you're into wines, Bill Harlan Wines. He's like king. You know. And he still has it today. With a Chevy, we did a rally. October, just a couple weeks ago. And he still has it with a Chevy. And the interesting thing is my son, who loves performance cars, he said, "Dad, do you suppose you could ever get that away from Bill?" And I said, "Bill, he sells nothing." So when I'm up there, I'm just kind of, "Bill, are you getting tired of this thing? You've had it since 1965. You've had it." He said, "It's my son's favorite car, and I love it. I'll never sell it." I'm going, "Good for you."
It's in the family, though, so you can't feel bad about that. Like, if it was missing, that's one thing, but at least where it is and it's being loved.
I mean, I couldn't ask for a better
That's
ending.
awesome.
I should ask our friend who's the president of the Gullwing Club whether that car is allowed in with the.
I would rock
Chevy,
it and be proud of it.
Do you know what's interesting? When I had it, it ran through this big exhaust like a drain pipe, and it sounded just like I had solid lifters. Now Bill, he's done some engine mods. He put a crate motor in it with hydraulic lifters. I kept the solid lifters in it. The big exhaust, you couldn't tell that it wasn't a Gullwing. The only way I could tell that it had a Chevy, it was a reverse trigger. Like in the 60s Chevy, they had the reverse trigger. That's how I figured out what a dream car this was. But he still has it, and he loves it.
Good for him.
And
most anyone can work on it.
Well,
anybody. Oh no, I had it all. Like, this is what I should.
You can go to AutoZone and get parts in case you're on a rally.
So I've always had a Gullwing since 1965.
We're looking at one right now.
Yeah, and he's since it was dark blue when I had it. He painted it black, and it looks just like that.
Well, do you know originally what it was? That car?
I'm guessing it was dark blue metallic.
It was dark blue. Okay.
Yeah, because that was pretty original when I got it. Back then Gullwings were $4 or $5
Wow.
Yeah, and I don't think if you're Chip Foose I don't think you could design a prettier car than that. And I put a lot of miles in the Gullwings, and we have a Roadster as well, and they're just fabulous driving cars.
Oh, just rolling automotive art. Really is.
Should we get back to Porsches?
Yes. So I'm going to go back to you mentioned a name that we want to ask about, and it's back to a Porsche, and it's also a black. We're looking at the black 300 here. You bought Steve McQueen's black Speedster, and
I did.
Manny mentioned to me that there was a funny story of you sold it and something else happened later down the road.
Yeah. So I bought it, I want to say in like the late 60s. I paid $1,800 for it. Rudge wheels. From
Rudge wheels.
Rudge wheels. Factory black interior. And the fellow, it was at a car show out in the San Fernando Valley, and I just thought it was a good-looking thing, And he said, as I was driving it off, basically this car belonged to Steve McQueen. I didn't care. I mean, Steve, I didn't even know what car. I mean, it was cool that it was his, but it didn't matter. And so I had it for a lot of years, like a dozen years.
What year was this?
58. It was the right one. 58
what
Super.
year did you get it?
I think I got it in 67, 68.
Oh, so that was, wow.
Yeah.
Were you looking for a black one? Because
No, I wasn't looking for anything.
Okay.
I just, I'm real picky on what I like and what I don't like. And everything in here.
You say you're picky, but you fall on things that are like, or things fall
I've
on
been
you
lucky.
that are just
No, I'm not here just out of genius, I can tell you that. It has nothing to do with it. It's just being... lucky.
So this falls in your lap, and you decide.
Yeah, and it was
cool car.
Back then, I was spending most of my time on a motorcycle, and I was dating my wife, and it was just a car. It was my car. And,
Just a car.
And my roommate, anyways, it went to him for a little while, then it came back to me. And so the epicenter of kind of the cool Porsches in town was Bob Smith Porsche Audi. It was Bob Smith Porsche across from Bob Smith Volkswagen in Hollywood. And they did, McQueen, all the cool guys would hang out there on Saturday. You'd drive your car up, and it was like early cars and coffee. And so I just mentioned to Pete Smith, who was the proprietor, I said, this car belonged to Steve McQueen. Oh, yeah. And he was really good friends with Steve. So I didn't want to sell it. I loved the car. And about probably shortly thereafter, McQueen calls me. He said, Bruce, this is Steve McQueen. Really?
Sure it is.
Yeah, sure it is. And he said, you've been telling people you have my old Porsche. And it's really, I can tell you, I sold it to a stockbroker, and he totaled it. So what you have isn't my car. I'm going, it's fine. I love the car. But I want to see what you have. I'm going, okay, fair enough. So I mentioned to my wife, Raylene, I said, Steve McQueen called, and he wants to see the car. And, of course, she's kind of a car person, and she'll do stuff that appeals to her. That's
the one thing. I'll go on that trip.
Yeah, so she drove out. Remember, we met out in Westwood because he was living in Malibu, and I was living in Hollywood. We met halfway in the middle, which was Westwood.
Like in a parking lot?
No, on a street corner. I forget.
You're meeting, honey, we're going to go meet Steve McQueen on a street corner.
Yeah, he picked a place. I forget where it was. It was in Westwood Village, but it was not in the commercial area. And and he was there waiting when I got there, and I pulled up, and you could see his eyes were ready to pop out,
Really?
Oh, my God. And he came up to the car, and back in the early days of racing, they used recapped tires. Mm-hmm. That's what you use.
Right.
And Gardner Reynolds was the recapper of choice for they did kind of a Goodyear Blue Streak kind of adaptation, their own little version.
So like a performance recap.
Performance recap.
Okay.
And I unbeknownst to me, that was his tire was in the spare. In other words, I didn't realize it was a Gardner Reynolds recap because I didn't, I never studied what it was. Yeah. And so he goes behind the seat and he just takes the carpet and he just like pulls the square weave off and he says, that's where my roll bar was. And he said, let me see up front. And he said, that's my Gardner Reynolds recap. You would think it was like being reintroduced to your. He said, you got to sell me this car. I said, Steve, I'm glad you like it. I'm very happy with the car. I'm glad you like it too, but it's not for sale.
You said no to Steve McQueen.
I did. And it didn't last that long because I could tell he really wanted it. Yeah. And at the time he was buying a lot of cars and motorcycles, and he was living in Malibu, and married to oh God, I can't think of her name right now, but an actress, and he called me like every week, Bruce. You don't understand what this car means. It's the first new car I ever bought for myself. I raced it. Oh, you got to sell me this car. And so I thought, you know what? I said to my wife, you know what? I wasn't my primary car, but he really, really, really wants this car. And I'm going to do a solid. I'm going to sell it back to Steve. So I said to Steve, now, look, here's the deal. This was market price. There was no premium. But if you ever sell the car, it's got to come back to me. And I'm figuring he'll get tired of it in a month or 2 or 6 or whatever, and I'll be hearing back from Steve. Well, sadly, he got cancer. He loved the car. And then he passed away, and he left it to Chad. And sadly, Chad has passed, and now the grandson Chase has it. I think that's the only thing they have of Steve's that they treasure.
Wow.
And just like my Gullwing went to the right person, that went to the right person.
Yeah, you can't feel bad about that.
Look, if it went to Steve and then he sold it, and it just been sold on and on and on, and I just go, what a dumb shit that I didn't keep it,
Yeah, no, definitely.
It's in the family.
It's in the family. It's in his family. It's where it ought to be.
It's where it ought to be, exactly.
And it was a fabulous car.
Wow. That's incredible. There's also a story about a 67 910.
Oh, this one.
This one.
Oh, yeah.
How does one come across this car and decide to take it home?
Well, this was for sale. This had a long-term owner, I should think of his name, in Ohio, that had it for like 30 some odd years. I would say about 30 years ago, became very enamored with Le Mans. And we've got 7 Le Mans winners in here. When I say winners, won their categories.
Sure. Right.
And so that's the only race that seems to matter now is Le Mans. That is the race.
Sure.
And so there was Mark Leonard down in La Jolla had this car for sale, and just it said won its category, it finished in the top 10 at Le Mans, won its class, and that appealed to me, and so I bought it.
Was it? It was for sale, or you?
It was for sale by him.
By him. Ah. Okay.
And I, you know, I've probably everything in here I've overpaid for.
But in the long run, you're doing just fine.
You know what I say? Buy the best and cry only once.
Yeah.
This car is the first prototype that Porsche came out with, real prototype. Before that, they had the 904 and the 906, but those cars really had a lot of like production car bits, the wheels, so forth. So Piech, who was running Porsche at that period, he was really into racing. And using all the technology, the advanced technology, you know, they had the 917. So this has, you know, proper like 917-ish wheels. It's the first prototype they had. It's a 910 because you'd think, well, if they had to come out with a 907, a 908, and a 910. No, they did a 9010, a 907, a 908, and then on. But I don't know where they came up with the numbers, but this is a 910. And it's very, very original car. I can't speak for the body, but the chassis and the engines, I've had, you know, experts come in and verify that it's the real. It's the first real prototype. I love the look of it. I have a model on my desk, just the profile. I keep models. You know, I first of all, I think you can enjoy this hobby. You know, 1/43rd, 1/18,
Absolutely.
1/12 scale. Just because I just love models, and so I look at this a lot.
I always thought these were amazing that they just had 2-liter engines in them. They were still in that category. You know, they hadn't gone to the big 12-cylinder yet, and it was still a 2-liter engine, but it was going against it was a giant killer, going against the Ferraris and Jags and Aston Martins of the time, but it was just a 2-liter flat six.
And if I remember, if I can remember, I'm going to send you a picture. So Dr. Porsche, Wolfgang Porsche, came into town about 2 years ago, and he wanted to go for a ride in the 935, which wasn't. It's just not possible to put a passenger seat in.
Yeah, I was like, where are you going to? Where and how are you going to do that?
But I said, what we can do is, I said, there is an extra seat in the RSR.
Yeah.
So, anyways, my son took this car, and I have a picture going down PCH with a whole bunch of Porsches. This car you can drive it on the street.
I was about to ask you that. Is this because this is the last of these street?
It is the last
prototypes.
Exactly right. Everything in here, we've driven on the street. Everything
Except for your Corvette.
No, the C6 now.
Yeah.
But I mean the 60, yes.
Yeah, the 60 you get.
Yeah, I forgot it. Yeah, you're right. Everything with the exception of that.
Yeah.
And the dragster, and maybe my Bonneville thing in the back. But
that was understandable.
Totally understandable.
But it's even that Pearson Brothers coupe. We've driven that, and yeah. So I'm going to show you. I'll just share with a little B-roll on that. So.
Cool. All right, let's move on. There's more. And for those of you that are listening, I hope you're enjoying this as much as we are. And we're trying to get to all of them, but we might not. But hang in there. We're going to keep moving forward. Backstory on the 73 911 Carrera RS-R 2.8. How did you come across that one?
So there's historians in the PCA that'll probably tell me I'm wrong, but my understanding is...
The comments help us. So.
Yeah. Don't worry. Don't worry.
For the comments.
Yeah, the comments will come alive.
But Porsche was run by the Piech family, and the Piechs and the Porsches got along but didn't get along perfectly well. And Piech was developing some of the great prototypes. 917s. Amazing, but there's that expression, win on Sunday, sell on Monday. That doesn't work so well on a 910 or a 917. So, and the Porsche family wanted to sell cars and make it a real business. And so in around 1972ish, they decided that they were going to take the family out of the overall management and put in Ernst Furman.
Yep.
who was already at Porsche and a known winner. And so it was under his leadership that they decided they were going to race profile cars that somebody could recognize, that's a Porsche. And so in order to homologate these cars as production cars, they needed to make 500, I think. And that's hence the 73 RS. And so they were not available in the US. It was 2.7. It was an upgrade. And they made 500, and then they made another 500, and then they made another 500. So they ended up making approximately 1,500. And it is maybe my most favorite driving car ever.
Wow.
It is. I don't want to hurt my feelings over here.
The Cobra guys aren't
The
listening
Cobra
to the
guy,
podcast.
yeah, those guys don't listen.
They're
to
not
this stuff.
listening to our channel here.
So I had an RS Touring, which was a street car, for a lot of years, decades, and then I was in Scottsdale maybe, I don't know, gosh, maybe 5 years ago, something like that, and I'm with a friend of mine, a very knowledgeable Porsche guy, Bruce Canepa. You know,
Oh yeah.
So
Another
Bruce,
who's who.
Yeah. So Bruce and I were walking by my RS. It's actually an RS-H. He said, "That's a homologation car," and I'm going, "Okay." You know, I didn't know
which is right around the corner.
Yeah, I didn't know what a homologation car was.
Unfortunately, you guys can't see it, but we'll hopefully have B-roll. It's sitting right over there.
So he said, "I know that car," and I'm going, "Really?" You know, he said, "I made him an offer, but Bruce, you know, buys right and sells right, right?"
Right.
Why
Correct.
pay less?
Yes.
So anyway, and by the way, Bruce has worked on every car in here, including the hot rods, and he's a very good friend. But I listened, and when he got kind of excited about that, I said, "Well, what did you think it's worth?" He said, "Well, I offered him this," and he said, "I think it's worth that." You know, I'm going, "Okay." I said, "Do you mind if I put an offer in?" He said, "Nah, go ahead." You know, so Shelby Myers, I said to Shelby, you know, I'm interested in that car. And this is what I'll pay. And Shelby says, "Let me take it to the owner." The owner was from Bangkok, and he couldn't export the car. For some reason, you can't. I don't know what the laws are.
Yeah.
But he could. It had been sitting for years. You know, just hadn't been used. And it was restored by Nate Cantwell. I'm sure some of your listeners would know Nate Cantwell. This guy is like as good as it gets in the world of Porsche restoration. I mean, wins the Manhattan Trophy. I mean, he is the guy. And so I thought, well, I'm going to call Nate. And he said, "Bruce, that car is the most original RS I've ever restored." And it was, you know, I would be doing myself an injustice if I didn't give a shout out to the guy.
Yeah, sure.
Let me just look on my phone, because I would be nothing without my phone.
And the car, like I said, while he's looking that up, Manny, you know, if you looked at it closely, it's meticulous, and it's, oh my gosh.
I did not realize it didn't have pop-out rear windows.
Yeah. I mean,
Until
all in
Bruce
the
built it
need
up.
for
Mark
lightness.
Heineke.
Okay.
No, people in Seattle, Portland will know Heineke. He had this car, and he had Nate restore it for him. And I did a little bit of homework, enough to find out that this was like absolutely, unquestionably the car. And so Porsche made 1,500 RSs, and then they made, I think it's 200 or 300 lightweights. I have my lifeline over there, Tom.
Tom, your live human Google, your car Google over
Tom
there.
Kenny, you know, we play a lot here together. Anyways, they made a few hundred lightweights, and then there were 17 of these RS-H's. And what they did, evidently, something like they would pull them off the line and submit them to the FIA to homologate these cars for racing. And so as the production line went on, they would upgrade certain things, change certain alloys, spring rates, whatever, wheel sizes, you know, that kind of thing. And so this car was the first, it's one of the last cars made. It might be 17 of 17 or 15 of 17 homologation cars. But it has I want to say selenium case. Because
engine case.
Engine case.
Okay, yeah.
Because the first ones were magnesium. And so from what I understand, when they were increasing the capacity from 2.7 to 2.8 to 3 liter, whatever, the studs were pulling out of the block. So they they changed to a more robust alloy. So this is an alloy. It's probably aluminum, magnesium, something. And
So this was the test bed for the next generation.
right.
Wow.
So that's the only one with this.
How cool is that?
I think it's pretty cool. But other than that, having Nate Cantwell restore the car, it is sublimely fantastic. It is so different than my touring. I think they have like brass bushings, so it makes a little more rickety rackety noise, but
In the sweetest way. In the sweetest way.
the noise we love.
Yeah, exactly.
And it just runs fantastic. So
Did you tell us when we first got here that's your drive around town car?
I keep it at home because when on Porsche events, I don't.
Let me just say where we are. I can't say where we are, but where we are, there's a lot of traffic here, and it would make me very nervous to be driving
Well,
that.
I would have no problem driving it anywhere. It's just
Good
a
for
wonderful
you.
car, and
Good for you.
and one of the things we enjoy is driving. Everything in here we drive, except those that we decided we
yeah.
did. But and driving that car is, I love small cars, and we have newer Porsches, but they don't do it for me. I know the lift comes when you go up my driveway and it goes back down and does all that stuff, but it's a big ass car. That car looks like
The
a
newer
mini
cars
me.
are much bigger.
But we did that exhibit at the Peterson celebrating the 60th, I think, and it was called the Porsche Effect. And when you can see a Gamund and you can see a Turbo Carrera,
Oh, yeah.
or
992.
whatever,
Yeah.
you know what it is.
Yeah.
There's no question about
yeah.
it. And Porsche's been just fabulous in their designs.
Yeah, and I think each iteration, there's certain generations that covet the balance of analog versus digital or performance, right? So the people that are in the modern cars, I mean, they're such capable cars. They're incredibly reliable. They can do anything in it. But as you get into the older generations, and that have more of a personality, and it's not about total performance. It's about how engaged you are. Like you said, the crickety sounds of the brass bushings to someone that's in a modern car, that seems like that would be something negative. But to someone that's driving an early car, they're like, that's cool. Like that means I know what the mechanics are doing for me as I'm going through the corner.
A newer Porsche could run away from
Most everything in here.
Most
Yeah.
everything in here.
Yeah.
So if you want that runaway speed,
Yeah.
when you're my age, it's more about finesse and momentum and memories.
Yeah, there's a romance.
That's why you
Right,
can't.
yeah.
You shouldn't just have one. I tell
Correct.
people that all the time. I'm like, you don't have to choose. You can
No.
have the older car. You can have a newer car.
Yeah.
There's no rule that says you just can only have one Porsche.
And what's wonderful about the early 911s is that they're just so beautiful. And some people are putting I think the RS flares are just great. And so they're putting RS flares on regular street 67s and 68.
They look fantastic.
Looks fantastic. And it's just fine. Unstock would welcome that.
Absolutely. It would be one of the 3 visible modifications that they have to submit
What,
to
what
us.
I love about, I guess, to me, I bemoaned when they finally evolved with the 996. Because up until that point, for the 993, my first 911 was a 964. I bought it used, and I remember I went down to Champion Porsche, flew down, and I'm sitting in the car, and the sales lady's next to me, and I looked at her, and I said, you got to help me. I said, I've never sat in one of these. I don't know what I'm looking at. And she says, most people that are buying these have owned it before, and they haven't changed anything since 1964. And fast forward a couple years later, I'm in a 67 911, and sure enough, she was right. Everywhere like the sunroof motor, the odometer, everything was still there in the same spot it was even in 1990. And I thought, you really got to respect the company that said, you know what, if it works, we're not going to mess with it.
The
And
Porsche
leave-
effect,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, isn't it amazing when you think about brand management? How wonderful! I mean, you got Rolex and some like Coca-Cola maybe, and Porsche. They just managed it so well. They could have gone wrong,
Yeah.
when they were eliminating the
Sure.
911, or they
Yeah.
could have gone wrong. Listen, I love Lamborghinis, and I really respect them. But I think some of their marketing is appealed to like non-Porsche people.
Right.
and they're the ones that peel out after the.
Oh,
I don't want to. You know what? I don't want.
You heard a recent podcast where we were talking about this.
Is that right? Yeah.
And how they're leaving meats.
Well,
and
we
it's
didn't
just
single out Lamborghini or any particular brand. But
and by the way, I love. I'm very respectful of Lamborghini.
You're right. It's a different breed of folks, and they're not necessarily enthusiasts. And
they're great cars.
They are great cars, but sometimes, I love. I would love to have like a Huracan. I love a Huracan. I'll say it publicly. But I feel like if I were to get one, I would get lumped into that crowd that I don't necessarily want to belong to. Does that sound right?
No.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Comments of Goodwin.
No disrespect, but you know what I mean.
No, I know what you mean. And by the way, I think like the Aventador. It's just stunning.
Absolutely.
And the Huracan is amazing.
It's a
and
great
you look at
car.
The Countach, the Mura. These are freaking great. And so I mean, and worthy. We're going to do a retrospective at the Peterson, the history of Lamborghini, and it's owned by Volkswagen, right?
Yes.
So it's in the family. It's in the family.
That's when it became really reliable.
Yeah,
I mean, really,
right.
that's once they took over, then suddenly, I mean, who would have thought that back before Volkswagen bought them, they would have never built an SUV. And now I think we passed 3 of them on the way over here. They did what was necessary to survive, and they became reliable.
Yeah, that's true. Little German engineer.
Since you mentioned the Peterson, is the Porsche brand one of those reliable, like if you want to fill the museum with traffic, that if you were to bring back a Porsche display, on a regular basis, like it does that work for the museum? Okay, good. That's
and our Porsche days, when we celebrate Porsches, I mean, it's a turnaway crowd. In the parking lot, in the museum, Porsche has a following that is amazing.
Yeah.
It used to be Shelby. Shelby was our number 1, and they're still pretty strong, but nothing like Porsche.
Nice. We're so fortunate that the brand that we do this every day. We do it on the weekends, and we're very fortunate that the brand we've hung our hat on is doing so well in that.
Picked the right one.
Yeah, we really did. We're very fortunate.
I think was it Steve Earle that said, if you want a successful event, feature Ferrari or Porsche, and you'll score a home run every single time.
The brand allegiance is so strong.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this very, very incredible car, this 935. How does one...
You're going to skip right over the RSR?
Well, yeah. I mean, okay.
Let me.
It's a very hard.
I'm surprised too, because as much as you're into audio,
I know.
and they were sponsored by Gerard.
I know, but
if we're going in some kind of order,
okay, we're going in order. Okay. Look at
Bruce calling you out.
Bruce calling me out. Yes, sir. Let's go to the
Bruce. Now you know what I got to do.
I feel
I'm like,
sorry.
you're skipping over the script.
I know, but I look
God.
at. Okay, yes. All right, let's go. Number 59.
So I think that the RS and the RSR. I think the RSR is like maybe the most beautiful shape ever.
The flares.
Ever. And you know what's interesting to my eye is that when they backdate, they customize, they unstock things, and they all come out looking like an RSR. An RSR is not, if you with the young people, it's not as desirable as a GT3 paint to sample, whatever,
I think educated ones. I think the educated young ones know.
I think that is just as good as it gets, and that's my generation with Hurley Haywood and Peter
I was going to say, but you throw in the Brumos history and livery. I mean, is there anything more iconic, at least in the U.S., than this right here? And I bemoaned when the Brumos name left the dealership. Thank God they have a museum to keep it alive, but wow.
Have you been to the museum?
Yes.
Dan Davis?
Yeah.
Great guy. Yeah. So I don't know. It almost speaks for itself, but that is so Porsche, when they went racing in '73, right? The most important race is Le Mans, but I mean it's Daytona, Sebring, Le Mans, Targa Florio. Those were the race, and they won them all with an RSR. That is incredible. So now, in the U.S., like the loved race, other than a Can-Am used to be, is Trans Am. Corvettes, Pontiacs, Mustangs, Camaros. So Porsche builds this Now, I have a theory that this has a lot of the technology of the Daytona winner, the 73, because right after Daytona, Peter Gregg won it. Jack Atkinson, who was the crew chief, had to get the car right back to Germany like the next day. And I think the reason is they didn't want anybody to do too deep a dive to see the little trick shit they did.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I hope, in my dream, this is the rejuvenation of the Daytona winner, because this car, they built this car especially for Peter Gregg to contest Trans Am and IMSA. Now, Trans Am were these big thumping V8s.
Right.
And this car was a double winner in 73. It won overall IMSA and overall Trans Am, which I think is pretty awesome. It's a very trick car. It has a lot of firsts. I feel very fortunate to have this car. It's just so special. And in the U.S., like you say, it was Brumos. In Europe, it was Martini.
Yep.
Those were the kind of the liveries. So I can just sit and look at this car and visualize reading competition press and reading about Peter Gregg, who I thought was just the coolest dude, Navy intelligence. Do you know how the number 59 came about?
No.
I don't know.
I
Okay.
learned something.
I know how Brumos, the name came, but not the 59.
Yeah, Brundage Motors.
Yeah.
So Peter Gregg was in naval intelligence. Peter Gregg was an awesome driver. Totally cool dude. It's just sad at the end. But so he was naval intelligence on the USS Forstall. And if you look up USS Forstall, it's number 59. Aircraft carriers had these big on the landing.
Yeah.
It's 59. So all of his cars were 59. Wow. It came from that.
Look at that. We learned something
all
new.
the time. Did not realize that.
And that's why you all have to listen.
Fact check
That is the ult. I had never even seen that on a trivia quiz.
You heard it
Why
here
was
on
59?
PCA's Insider Podcast.
And this is an
Very
interesting
cool.
car because with RSRs, with almost any race car, you got to be really careful when you go to buy one.
Yeah.
Because you can replicate a competition Cobra or an RSR to like even some of the best judges can't. So I've been like overly careful, and I'd always liked the RSR. So there's a fellow Andy Prill who's a Porsche finder in Europe, well respected. I was just mentioning to Andy, I'd love to find an RSR, and I'd found one that he looked at. He said, "Bruce, don't walk away from this. Run away from it. It's one of those like Washington's axe. The head's been changed only once and the handle twice, but it's the original axe.
Right.
This oftentimes happens in the world of Porsche and race cars
cars,
because they're
race cars.
tools. They get
Yeah.
the shit beat out of them.
Right.
And it wasn't unusual for the factory to give you a new chassis when you balled it up. And they weren't requiring you to send in the old chassis. They just said, here's
Because they
the new
didn't
one.
think it was going to be worth anything.
Yeah,
right? They're just parts.
and Jaguar,
Yeah.
we've, D-types, you had the rear suspension, the monocoque, and the front suspension, and any of those were throwaway parts. And you could build a car from any one of those now, and it would be a genuine Jaguar. Anyway, so I found this car. It was at DK Engineering in the UK, and they had it. It was in the back of their showroom. Just the tip of the front was showing, and so I said to Andy, I said, "Would you be kind enough just to go look at this car? I'm just curious. I figured it was a clone." But I just love that livery. And he came back and said, "Bruce, that's the Trans Am IMSA winner." I'm going, "No." And he said, "Well, we can find out because there's ways." And so for 5 months, I got the Porsche forensic deep dive experts. There's a lot of those out there. But I wanted every one of them to agree that this was the car. And so they did metallurgy. They tested the thickness. They cut a piece out of it.
Wow.
It convinced me, and it convinced Andy. Andy said, "This is the car." Wow. And because after it's finished racing, Charlie Kemp had it, and then it raced with Armor All livery. And then there's a fellow named Danny McLaughlin who had AIR. He used to do. He used to take splashes off cars and recreate them. And anyways, it had a history, a good history, and it was continuous. And then it went to a fellow in France who painted it this and raced it, and then he sold it to a very wealthy Austrian who decided, this car's worthy of doing, and he took it to the best body shop recommended by Porsche family, and then it went to Lee Maxted Page in London to do the mechanicals. So he did it. He spent a fortune doing it the right way. And then when it was all done, he had started racing in a new Mercedes, and he thought the new Mercedes was safer, which it was. And he thought, you know what, this is too nice. I'm going to sell it. And I just happened to be right there at the right time. Because, this is fabulous. And I have pictures of taking Wolfgang Porsche on a rally in this car. So anyway, it's good fun. Now, the 935.
Yes.
That car should probably be under glass at the factory. It's a Kremer 935. So, the Kremer was like AMG. They hot rodded them, and did a lot of very
unique modifications.
Yes. And aero, and the upside down transmission, water, air cooled intercoolers. That's what you sometimes get with when you turn it over to hot rodders. The factory can't think of everything.
Right.
So they created that car.
If you look at the roof line from here, you can see it 911 roof line, but there's a second roof.
Yes.
But it has like a double glass, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people know that, because when they went through,
that's like from a copy of the Moby Dick, I think, right?
Yes. Well, what it is, what's interesting is, so I'd heard these stories about, the Whittingtons and how they came about buying it, and it was so like crazy that I thought I got to find out what the real answer is. So I went and I interviewed Manfred Kremer, Klaus Ludwig, and the Whittingtons, and all the stories jibe.
Really?
But what's interesting, Manfred Kremer said when we took this car through scrutineering at Le Mans, they weren't going to allow it, because they said with the Group 5, which that is, you have to have the original rear window in there. And what you've got there is that, and so he explained the rear window's in there.
Yeah.
Underneath.
Yeah.
It's that kind of trick shit,
Yeah.
I use that shit word a lot. I shouldn't be.
Hot rodders. I think that's a hot rodders dictionary.
Is that part of?
Yeah.
Is that acceptable?
It's acceptable.
Okay, so and they did, like, even Roof, when he did the Yellowbird, he took the rain gutters off.
Right.
You just don't realize. I ran Bonneville for years, and you don't realize how aero matters. And they have a little piece of rubber that fills in the leading edge of the drain of the rain gutters in that car. Mm-hmm. Special mirrors, special bodywork. They made that car as slippery as they could. They had that CP, did all the the wind tunnel and all that. So that's a pretty darn special thing. And if you look at a factory 935, it's very different than that. It's cool, but it's just different.
Yeah, it's very similar to what the folks at Montai, right? They live and breathe racing on the track, and they may not necessarily do anything to the motor, but they know the aero, they know the suspension, they know the race craft, and all this.
What I love about this car, though, in this era, unlike Montai, where everything's now, Porsche is very particular on who drives the cars, who they're getting involved with.
Oh, yeah.
But back then, it wasn't so much so. And I think that didn't the factory supply Klaus as the driver, and then
that's exactly right. Klaus was like the driver back in '79. He was the guy. He'd won the championship with Mercedes,
and factory,
and he was the
approved
factory Kremer guy.
Okay.
He was hot. And a good-looking guy. And I went and interviewed him, by the way. And you see all the pictures of Klaus, this wavy German hair. The guy just looked like rock star, downhill racer, gold medal. He said, and then I went and I interviewed him about 3 years ago at Essen. And this guy's my age, and he didn't have any hair.
Oh.
And I remember going up to the Mercedes hospitality area at Essen. I wanted to see Klaus Ludwig, and he said, well, he just left. He went downstairs. I just passed an old man going downstairs.
Oh.
Anyway, so I went down, and it was Klaus, and he was great. No, he is Klaus Ludwig. He's a pro.
Wow.
But and the Whittingtons, they're sketchy.
Manny
But when you think about it, that period, you had the drug dealers.
Yes.
It was a way you could spend your cash and have fun with it. You know.
But still goes on to this day. I mean, wasn't that long ago we had
A fun way to launder your money.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Parnelli Jones is a really good friend of mine, and the Whittingtons went and bought a whole setup, Indy setup from with the Whitting, sold it to the Whitting, all cash. Manfred Kremer's wife said it took her like the better part of a day to count cash, you know, for the drive and then to buy the car, and it was quite a story. Wow. But it was a drug infested series.
Is this the car where he brought a suitcase of cash because he wanted to drive?
Yes.
First, was that what the story was?
Well, what's interesting, I have a friend of mine, Charlie Nierberg, who has a great Porsche collection, by the way, and a certifiably great driver. But he went to Le Mans because he wanted to drive a Le Mans. Now, you can go to Le Mans being, you know, Charlie Nierberg, a wealthy, good driver, or you can go wealthy and pay, or you can come with a great sponsor. So Charlie went to paid up front to drive this Ferrari at Le Mans, and the owner of the car, Charlie said, well, I want to go, and the owner of the car said, I'm going to go first. And the guy went and ran out of gas at the farthest, you know, just basically Charlie never even got to drive the car. So the Whittingtons were smarter than that. So they sat with Kremer, and they said, look at Don, the elder, said, look, I want Bill to go first, then I'll go, and then your guy Klaus can go.
your guy Klaus.
Yeah, and Manfred
the
said,
driver.
That's not the way it's going to work. He said, this is my car, and Klaus will go first, and then you guys work it out. And so those guys, like this is the day before, you know, when they're strategizing, they said, well, if it's our car, well, if it's your car, you do whatever you want. He said, well, what does it cost to be our car? Now, they already paid enough to buy the car, to drive it, and to have it, backed up.
Yep.
Right.
And he said, well, and Klaus Ludwig, when I interviewed him, he was telling me the story. He said, you know, I never got a commission because I was the one that came up and said another $200,000. So they'd already paid over $200 to drive it. Then they paid $200 more to buy it. And
so they could drive first.
But you're right. Driving first
Cash is king. Some things don't
But
change.
they end up winning. They don't wreck the car. Because wasn't it the fear that they were going to wreck the car before Klaus could get in?
Exactly.
And then he wouldn't be able to. For
right.
Kremer, because Kremer wanted to win, obviously.
Yeah, and it was a privateer, an Americans.
Yes.
And it was just like never really. It's a 911 had never even come close to anything like that before. Wow. It was epic.
Yeah, definitely.
And then right after that, they get indicted and went away. And it was so funny because
it was a good run.
I learned. I met the Whittingtons, and they said we went to Yale. And I'm going, really? You know, that was there where, you know, they went away.
Yeah, Yale with a J.
Yale with a J.
Yale with a J.
So how did this come? How did you luck out into this car? Because I'm guessing you weren't looking for it.
I was absolutely not looking. You're catching on.
He's catching on.
No, I was not looking for it. And I had restored a very important Indianapolis winning car from 1952, driven by Troy Ruttman. Oh, and I'd owned the car for 30 years. I grew up, there's a raceway here called Ascot Park, and it's a flat track and TT track, and I grew up at that track with the Agajanians. They ran it. And J.C. Agajanian was a big race promoter, and he owned Parnelli's car, and he also owned Troy Ruttman's car. So this was the last dirt car to ever win Indy, the youngest driver ever, really good looking car. And I found this car back in a long, long time ago, maybe 40 years ago, maybe longer. And I had the car. We took it all over to Oklahoma to Troy's birthday, and it went everywhere. And Troy was still alive, and went with the car. He was a recluse in Florida, and when I restored the car, I paid for him to come out, and then he fell in love with the car. So everywhere the car went, Troy went, and he was signing autographs. It was a really big deal. So Parnelli Jones had a collection of great cars, and Parnelli's partner, Vel Milicic, Vel had passed away, and the family wanted to, monetize the collection. So Parnelli was probably, 70 back then or 75, and he thought, well, this is probably a good time to sell stuff. So the Indy Speedway went to Parnelli, they agreed on the price, and they said, okay, we'll do this deal, but you got to include the Agajanian special in this thing. So Parnelli came to me, Bruce, I'd have a big favor. What, Rufus, I called him Rufus. What's that? He said, and he told me the story. He said, I got to include your car in this package. I said, I don't want to sell that car. and I mean, I was literally dreaming of, that car was like maybe the most famous car I had. It won Indy. It was a champ car. It checked every box for me. I said,
But they needed this car to make the deal.
They needed the car to make the deal.
Oh.
So after, and my Evan, my son, who's a Porsche and car guy, he says, do it. It didn't mean much to him, but it meant a lot to me. And so I said, okay, well, I'll trade it. Find something to trade. And so when the Whittingtons went to Yale, with a J, the government wanted to seize everything they had, because it was all 100% that was bought with dirty money.
Sure.
100%. And so they wanted to get rid of everything so the government would have less of a feeding frenzy. And they donated this car to the Indy Speedway Museum.
Oh, wow.
At which the Indy Speedway goes, what the shit do we do with it? There I am.
Hot rod word of the day.
Hot rod word of the day. What are we going to do with this? And they put it in the basement for 30 years. That thing sat in the basement for 30 years. So when they were doing the deal with Parnelli, they said, well, Bruce needs an exchange. And they said, well, we've got this. And I'm going, no. This, I said that could work. So that's what we did. We did it like a donation exchange. It was a transaction.
A winner for an Indie winner.
That,
wow,
ladies and gentlemen,
but for them,
that's karma.
Well, they sold the LM Indy win. That LM Ferrari Indy winner to Indy. Le Mans.
Yeah.
Le Mans is not Indy for them. Indy is Indy.
For them, yeah.
And so anyways, to make a long story short, this car meant nothing to them. Nothing.
Wow.
And they sold they sold the great Mercedes, they sold the LM Ferrari, because that's
not their world.
It's foreign stuff.
Yeah.
We want the good old American good stuff. So anyways, that's how I came across this. And then again, I sent it to Bruce Canepa, and because I wanted to drive it. And that car is, 850 horsepower, rear wheel drive.
Wow.
Big, it's like one step above a 91710. One step below, excuse me, and so it's just badass, and so.
What's it like when the boost kicks in?
Do it's just a hair-raising ride.
Yeah.
And I've learned with certain cars, you want to make sure you're going absolutely straight, because if not, it's going to turn around right in your tracks. So I'm very cautious with that. I'm sure somebody in a good running RS could whip my ass at Laguna Seca, because I've lived by this motto. Any of the history I could add to any car in here would be bad. I don't want to. We all know those great drivers that have.
But you and I'll tell the listeners, you got to YouTube this. Bruce Canepa played it like the awesome practical joke on you with this car.
It was so well executed.
Yeah.
And that's a whole segment in itself. But basically, he had just finished the car. We were taking it to Monterey. And as bad fortune would have it, the Whittingtons are getting re-indicted. So there's a guy named Albert Arciero, who's the Arciero big racing family, and so Albert is showing pictures of guys walking out of WorldJet, which was their company, with computers and files, and so we're all laughing like those guys, they can't. They went back to their old winning ways, and they're just so we're all laughing, So it was so timely. So we get the car up to Laguna Seca, and Bruce engineers this takeover that was like, it could have been a feature film.
Full Suburbans, guys in black.
He hired this specialist consultant that was a real life attorney, worked for the government, and was in special forces. He had a connection with somebody that had real Glocks and handcuffs and badges. They had real license plates, government license plates on the cars,
right.
Suburban, the Dodge.
That's the ultimate prank.
I'm telling you, it was Danny Sullivan, who's a really good friend of mine. He was there, and Danny, I love Danny, and Danny's with a group of guys. Danny said, "This is a prank." And after about a minute or two, Danny said, I don't think this is a prank. Honest to God, there was not anybody, including me, that thought for 1 nanosecond this was anything but real. And they hired these actors with wrapper, and they look like Marines, like no neck, just, they weren't going to let anybody get near me. They pranked me good.
They
got me good.
Well, there's one more story of the yellow car over there, but let me get through some administrative stuff here. Just make sure you head over to PCA.org to sign up for our PCA's newsletters. We have performance news, e-brake news, and Mart Fresh news, all free. Tech Taxes East will happen. I know we have the dates. Do you remember them? They were like, we'll put them on e-brake.
21st, I think, 22nd.
February?
Yes, February.
Yeah, February. And then we have Works Reunion, Amelia Island, March 6th. Registration opens December 10th. Recently, we did Tech Tactics Live, how to keep your Porsche looking new with Tim McNair. Great episode, so if you haven't checked that out, please do so. If you're looking to race with PCA members online, you can check out PCASimRacing.com. And if you're looking for insider swag, you can find bottles, mugs, t-shirts at PCA's web store. And if you're looking for insider podcasts, because after you listen to this podcast today, this particular episode, I'm sure you're a fan and you want to show your love for the podcast. Again, your address information to podcast at PCA.org. And before we close, we've got to talk about the little yellow car over there.
Sure. So again, I was not looking, but a friend of mine was over at Roof. I used to call it Rough. That's how, it's RUF.
What do you know?
What do I know?
What do you know?
And so he was over at Roof and he saw this car. So it's a Yellowbird, lightweight, because they made touring and they made lightweights. And this is like a super special car. So he saw the car there and so Alois Roof, the proprietors, said, this is my very first one I ever made. I made it
production car.
First production car, because Alois still has the prototype, which ran Fascination, at the Nürburgring, and competed in that shootout with Road and Track.
Right.
He still has that
And
car.
visually, the only difference is has NACA ducts.
There's only difference in the car is the NACA
Most
duct.
people don't even realize that.
No.
Yeah.
But that is exactly correct. It has these black NACA ducts on the rear wings. But so Alois was saying, I built this car to model it after our prototype because we just blah, 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 blah. And this is the very first one, CTR, which is a Group C engine, T for turbo, R for roof, CTR 001. That's what this is. And it belongs to a Japanese customer, and he wants us to paint it and kind of freshen it up. And so it's the first one. So this friend called, he said, would you ever sell it? Well, I don't know. It's a Japanese, blah, blah, blah. Make a long story short, it turned out that Pete Stout, who's a well-known Porsche guy, was...
And also past Porsche Panorama editor. So,
good guy. He just happened to be in the garage with my son, Evan. And we're talking about, Pete, what do you think of the Yellowbirds? Oh my God, And so he goes on, and I'm thinking, wow, really? So I'd never even driven.
So you really didn't know about Yellowbird at this
I
point?
knew about it, like everybody
Just from
knew
the magazine.
And Fascination.
Right,
I'd seen that.
Seeing it go sideways.
I'm not with me in it. But so he just said it's maybe the most exciting Porsche ever. So blah blah blah. Make a long story short, I said I'll see if the guy will sell it, and then what I want you to do is rebuild the engine and paint it, and leave the
Back
interior
at the factory. They're gonna.
Right at Roof.
Yeah.
And so we made a deal, and we did it.
Wow.
And that car is as fast as anything.
What year was that
today.
when you purchased it?
It was probably 10 years ago, maybe.
10 years ago. Okay.
But that thing is, by the way, an interesting side note, that car is a narrow body.
Yep.
And that gave him, Alois said they gave him 10 miles an hour top
speed.
end.
Yep.
No rain gutters, special mirrors. Alois is, no jamoke.
Yes.
He's the real. And he figured it out. And he went over and kicked ass.
Well, what we talked about, like the beginning, he was a hot rodder.
Yep.
He hot rodded the 911s.
100%.
Yep. Right down your lane.
And we had that, the first Unstock.
You brought,
That's right.
I brought that.
Yep.
Like 5 years ago, 4 years ago, I don't know.
Like that West Coast Customs.
Yeah.
But West Coast Customs.
We were so happy to see
and
you
we
there.
drive
Yeah.
that car. I mean, that car, my son is like a way better driver. And he can drive the modern stuff. And Tom, that works with me, he's also a kid. that car excites them.
Yeah.
And that's what. So that is my ode to current.
But you bought that talk about buying it at the right time. Because
my
now
gosh.
it seems like insane how much
it's crazy.
the CTRs are going for now.
Or
This
Gunter
year's
Singer.
auctions alone, to see the numbers that car is pulling.
We had Luis over the summer on the podcast, and we talked about this. How this is insane, the pricing of it's like suddenly everyone
I'm sure he
discovered
can't
roof.
believe it.
Yeah.
It was. He was very happy, obviously.
Oh, my
but
Lord. I'm
it's
telling
just really,
you,
it's almost like they're finally seeing their due, and then it was like a secret how great these cars were.
It was interesting because that car is, 2025 wicked fast. And I want to say a year or two ago, one sold for or a year ago, $6 million.
Yep. Oh yeah.
So I just don't sell anything. I'm
Man
really
after my
picky.
own heart.
I'm really picky what I buy.
You two can go to the same therapist.
Yeah, that's right.
happily go to the same therapist.
I'm very picky on what I buy, and I targeted. I probably and I just don't have any reason to sell it. And so, but Evan, we were just talking about the Yellowbird, and I said, Evan, what do you think this is worth? Because we just sometimes talk amongst ourselves. And he said, what do you think it's worth? I said, I think this thing could be worth $2-3 million. And then it sold. The other one sold for $6 million.
Yeah.
That wasn't number one.
Exactly.
No, and it wasn't really even a lightweight.
Yeah.
It just had low miles and
Unbelievable.
Yeah, pretty special.
Well, this has been special. Thank you so much for
for
inviting
me,
us.
for me.
Thank you for supporting us with Unstock and Panorama. Hopefully in the future we will find maybe a few more cars to talk about. Maybe go to the museum and do something fun there. For those of you that are listening, I hope you enjoyed this episode. It certainly has been special for Damon, Manny, and I. And we went over the typical hour, but I think it was well worth it. And so with that, I want to thank you all for listening. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Consider sharing our show, especially this one, with fellow Porsche enthusiasts. Until next time, stay safe, and we'll catch you down the road. Thank you,
Thanks
Bruce.
so much, Manny. This has
Thank
been
you.
a real
Thank
pleasure
you.
for me.